trade plans. I'm using so many tools, I'm typing with both hands. Uptrends, I finally got a tool that makes sense. Feeling like I'm a student. Cool dance is what you feeling like doing. After you in the past become a nuisance.
Presented by XABCDtrading.com. Want to know what could shake the market this week and where we could see the biggest moves? Hear the highlights of what you need to know that could rattle the market. Whether you trade futures, Forex, or stocks, it's all right now. Brought to you by XABCDtrading.com.
Take a moment to read this. A few things I want to highlight is this is not personal investment advice and should be used for educational purposes. Take a moment to read this. A few things I want to highlight is this is not personal investment advice and should be used for educational purposes only. Trading requires a high degree of risk and you should not risk money that you cannot afford to lose. Instead, use a demo account and practice accounts and always consult a licensed investment advisor, as we are not a licensed dealer or investor advisor, and none of this is an invitation to trade, so do not act on it. All right, guys. Should be able to see everything. What we do in these sessions, I mean, they're kind of open, but good way to start off my week, I find, is always looking at different levels of the market, trying to see where we might be able to get things either continuing in the trend that we're looking at or reversing. If you just came from our members webinar, you probably have a good idea of different patterns and what we use patterns, not that you have to use patterns, but we're going to be looking at just kind of like support resistance levels, stuff like that. So if you want to type in any charts, by all means do that. If you are in our members area, feel free to type in any instruments that you want to look at there and I'll hit those off. Or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, welcome. And you can always type them in there as well. And we can do that. All right, so let's see here. Where are we? All right. Okay, we have a few here. Yeah, it doesn't matter what market you want to look at. Any of them kind of, well, it all works the same way. So, yeah, let's hit these off. Don't forget to put in the time frame that you're looking at. We'll definitely be able to do that. All right. Okay, so you said 60 minutes. Looking at the 30, but either way, it's kind of all going to be the same. Okay, so if I was to look at a chart, let's just say the beginning of the week, I typically start out, no matter what time frame I'm trading, on like a 4-hour, because that usually gives me a good 3 to 4 day hold. Once you have that as an idea, for those of you that are members, you're probably going to want to look at stuff like Stoner that kind of tries to project based off cycles where we could be heading. This is looking like we're heading down. So I'd be looking at areas of support and resistance that might be able to work with that. So in this case, I mean, I think support's going to be pretty obvious, somewhere around 187 going up to probably just below 189. And the way I do this, if you haven't watched our support resistance video already, I would definitely recommend doing that. But start out on the furthest pip tick point, whatever you want to look at. The furthest one that you can get to where most of these candlesticks touch, and that's going to give you a decent area for support. I often believe support is going to be a zone and not just one price point on your chart. So that's going to be something that you'll have to kind of take into consideration when you're looking at things, is that you're not really looking at just one area, but you're looking at like a little bit of a zone in there. As far as resistance goes, I don't think it's as clean as obvious as what support would be. But again, if you want to look at that furthest pip out to where most of these candlesticks touch, then I'd be looking at this as my area for resistance. And that's basically going to leave me with our range, right? So When we look at a range, we kind of got to look objectively to it. We want to look at 3 points in order to confirm it, right? So we have a high, we have a low, and we have another high. And these are opposite levels of support resistance, which is going to be better for me to determine where I want to get in next, which is going to be the low. Now, sonar is heading down, so that's kind of giving us an indication that we might be looking at the right levels there. Whether or not we want to look for patterns that might be firing off in that same sort of area, right? That could be something that you might want to look at too. But what we're looking at just strictly for this video is going to be our areas of support resistance. Now, we do have the start of this range, but we could look at this, and this is one of the hardest things I think people have to do with trading, whether or not they're trading futures, forex, stocks, crypto, whatever, is to look at it as not what you think is going to happen, but what could happen, right? So another possibility is that we might be looking at a slight channel here, which shows price kind of trending up because we are making new highs as we kind of go, right? So ideally, the best place to get in, and this is going to be, I shouldn't say get in, but look for a reversal, would be somewhere where that area of that channel lines up with support, right? So this is probably going to be telling us that we should be looking at that area of support a little bit sooner rather than later when we're looking at this particular chart. If you are new, the platform that we're using is NinjaTrader 8. If you do use her stuff, you'll be glad to know that 8.0.26.0 should hopefully be out the door soon. But this is the area that we're kind of focusing on for, in your example, the pound kiwi. Yeah, we can. Oh, you weren't there this morning. Okay, yeah, we can go over the ES and do that too. What we do with forex or futures is going to be interchangeable. So, however we do it with the ES is going to be the same as how we do it with any other market. Whether you look at Bitcoin, I wonder if I have my data loaded here. There we go. Okay, let me clean this up a bit, and we'll toss on sonar. Now, sonar is going to be something that we use reflective to the time frame that we're working on. So if we're looking at this on a 4-hour, we want to be using sonar on the 4-hour, right? So again, our area of support or level that we might be interested on the ES is probably going to be closer to about that 41.50 going down to about 41, right? That would be where we'd kind of expect for the next week or so a reversal to happen, right? Somewhere in that 41 to 41.50. And then resistance would be closer to, let's just say 55.50 going up to, what's that, about 46.29. I highly doubt we're going to have to worry about that this week. I think it's going to be something that we'll have to look at maybe later on if we keep bouncing between this. But I think the area that we're closest to is probably going to be support, right? So that's where we're going to be looking at what's that, 41.60 and going down to about just below 41 is probably the area that we'll see some sort of level of support, or we hope to see some level of support kind of get respected in that area. But we'll have to see. Time will tell. We had quite a big sell-off on Friday, and so we got a pretty big move there, and that kind of continued today. So we haven't yet received, and I was just kind of talking about this, but some sort of a retracement level between our high there and where we have started to see some area of support kind of start to get respected there on the smaller time frames. But we're starting to see a few possibilities of a green bar coming in, which I don't think is going to be the end of our down move. We will get these little pop-ups along the way, but hopefully later, and it's probably not going to be today, but maybe later this week, we will be seeing price kind of get down closer to that 41.50 area. But what we need to see in order to say, okay, we've had a retracement, is that 382 to get hit, right? So then we can say, okay, well, we've been up to that level, and then we might even come all the way down and finish it off, and that might look like an ABCD pattern to some of you. So that will be a possibility of what could happen with that high to low. But I suspect that we're going to see this hopefully kind of drop in, depending on, of course, what happens today when the market opens. So it will be interesting to see how things kind of shape up in about a half an hour from now. But that would be one of the key levels for the ES I'd be looking at. Whether or not you look at the NQ, which I know seems to be pretty popular with some people, it's not going to be too different from what you're looking at with the ES. NQ does seem to bounce around a little bit more, but the levels of support resistance kind of stay the same in there. So I wouldn't suspect there's going to be a whole lot of change and see that we're kind of coming up in here, but whatever one might be better or work for you, you can kind of see again, we're looking like we're almost getting close to bottoming out. That's probably not going to be for a little bit yet, but that would be kind of like our low, and then you can kind of see sonar kind of shifts, and we start to see price heading back up at that point and leveling off. But the further sonar kind of goes out, the less we can kind of predict things, right? It's kind of like the weather. It's kind of hard to guess what's going to be 2 weeks from now. But if you're looking at the next few days, we pretty much have an idea what's going to happen, right? So we'll see what happens as things kind of progress. But yeah, it looks like we're still not down to that low yet. So we still got some time. And it will be interesting, I guess, to see how far down into this level of support we go. But starting to see price kind of settle a bit is a good indication. Some good wicks, like what we've had prior, kind of help us define decent levels that we could be looking at for the week. So hopefully we see a little bit of a bigger blowout than what we've seen here, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for, especially once we start get going in the earlier part of this week. We don't have a whole lot of news coming out this week, so I do think it's going to be mainly focused on what we see with stocks. So if you want to kind of get an idea of what's going to happen, looking at some of these indexes is probably not a bad idea, but definitely the level that we want to be looking at right here, probably looking at 1300 to hold, right? All right, let's keep going here. Yes, gold we can look at. Haven't looked at gold this week, but we can do that together. Okay, let me go to a daily, just one sec here. Okay, so from a daily perspective, we're still looking at something getting closer to that 17 to 1750 level, which we haven't seen in quite a long time. If you're looking at this more of like an intraday, obviously you're going to want to stay kind of clear of what we call our attractor, which is going to be through this area here. It's where we've seen resistance also become support. And from a daily perspective, this is probably the absolute worst time that you could be looking at trading. It's just where we have a lot of inconsistencies. We've kind of blown through that attractor. We've kind of respected it, and it's really hard to guess what's going to happen. But what we could do, instead of thinking of it on a daily time frame, which is going to require us to hold on to it for a while, is start narrowing down our time frames and drilling down into something much smaller. So even if you go down to like a 4 hour, kind of changes the chart a lot. But we're not quite there yet. We'd still be looking at maybe something a little bit, it's a 60 minute, a little bit easier, maybe like a 30 minute, where we're going to start to see this level of support get a little cleaner, and we get away from that attractor looking at it on a smaller time frame. Now, obviously, price is dropping down hard here, so this is not something I just want to jump into. But waiting to see that level of support kind of get respected is probably going to be showing up on smaller time frames like a 5 or a 15, a lot sooner than what we will see this happen on a 30 minute. So if you go down to, let's see here, this is a 15, a 5. I don't even think we'll see it yet. I don't think it has quite happened, but we'll start to see, like we were talking about wicks, with things kind of blowing out a lot quicker and a little bit more green bars, and maybe the start of some sort of reversal. Now, if you do trade patterns and stuff, then this might be the start of a next point, in which case we might start to see patterns where we could get indications on where to trade them after that. But right now what we want to see is we want to see this dust kind of settle. I don't think we're going to likely see that happen before the open in about 30 minutes. Maybe once after stocks open, we might see gold kind of react to that. But right now we'd want to see price kind of dry up and at least some price action kind of heading up in the opposite direction, where we can kind of say, okay, well, maybe a wick's been in there, which might on a 30 minute look like a 1, 2, or 3 bar sort of reversal pattern. But something to see this level hold would be good. But I think we are in the general area that we want to see. We just got to see price action now kind of respect it. So we'll see what happens on it. All right, let me see what else here. Yes, I have not looked at that one today. Now, this is probably mainly going up because, and I hate to kind of just generalize here, but with oil falling a bit and the stock market going down, typically when stocks go down, people flee to the US dollar, right? So the US dollar has been going up because of that, and because of the fact that oil is heading back down a bit. And when oil heads back down, that's not good for the Canadian economy. And when you look at a currency like the US CAD, that's going to bump up the US CAD, right? So the fact that this thing's kind of skyrocketing doesn't really surprise me. But if we're looking at a level for this to come back at, and you're kind of looking again at what's going to happen this week and not what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, then we're probably, again, going to be looking at that 2870 area going up to about 2970. So a bit of a range there, but we might be able to get some decent stuff there as far as patterns concerned. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely be the general area I'd be looking at for the US CAD. And I think shorts or support down at about 123 going to about 124 is the best you're going to get right now. Unless you go out to a daily, then you're probably looking at seeing something a little bit further. Right, but again, here we have support, right? Resistance. This is going to look very much like your attractor. So if I was looking at the US CAD, even on a 4-hour chart where that is looking like pretty decent resistance, I'd want to see if I can get down to maybe like a 60 or 30 minutes, something a little bit quicker to look for a bounce, because the longer we stay out at that daily, the more it looks like we could blow through these levels and even above 130, right? It doesn't look like this would be a hard thing to do. So we could take this as almost like a channel, right? And kind of see where that could be heading, right? So I think the shorter the time frame on something like the US CAD, like maybe like a 60 or 30 would be far better than looking at the 4-hour. Right, but generally that area is probably where we're going to be looking for resistance this week. Cool. All right, let's see anything else? All right. Let's see here. I think that's it. Let me move over to. Yeah, I think we're okay. All right. If there are any others that you guys want to look at, by all means, let me know. If you are in our members area, we can look at these throughout the rest of the day. Kind of continue to see what happens with them. If you are watching us through YouTube or some other platform, by all means, feel free to check out our other content and see if it's something that you like. If you like doing these sessions, let me know. Either write a comment, hit the like or subscribe button, do something that kind of indicates to us that we should keep doing these. Otherwise, what we'll do right now is just kind of wrap up. I don't think we need to spend ages kind of going over everything. I think hopefully you have a good idea from our past videos on how to draw in support resistance and be looking for some of these key levels. If pattern trading is something that you're interested in, you can always check out our site, XABCDtrading.com. And like I said, shoot us an email, or we have a live chat on the website. If you have any questions, you can ask them about that too. Otherwise, be safe, and we'll wrap up, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, guys. Cheers.